Yeah, your dad. That's why.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about that.
Your dad's retired?
Oh, yeah.
He's a professional gambler, right? He's a good friend.
I guess I didn't know he retired. I thought he was still out there.
No, he's been gone. That's the only reason I ever made supervisor. Is, his name wasn't out there anymore. That and they might be semi-retarded out there, but
What's the new place?
it's good. I haven't seen it run yet, so I mean, I'm waiting for the state of Washington does our boiler inspections.
Yeah.
Where you at now?
TCF, or Twin City Foods.
Oh.
I'll tell you the nickname after we stop recording. TCF stands for something. It does. It's hilarious. It is actually. It's a great place to work, guys. Come out.
Good.
All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We had a big debate on the February 14th thing, and well, here we are. We didn't debate long.
So you want to introduce Josh?
Yeah, we got Josh from Kemper Northwest coming up. We're gonna do IIAR 6. You guys have any questions? Speak up, raise your hands. You guys here too? Everybody, get there. If you need hours online, go ahead and send us an email to any of the chapter guys. Will be able to help you out. And like I said, we'll try to print this out as we go along, or get it at least afterwards. Can you guys hear me on there? Yep. All right. Everybody can hear us.
I'm about time, man.
You got it?
Right now we got 4. How you doing, man? How you doing, Tony?
We're gonna be discussing IR6, the importance and what IR6 involved in this. We'll go over that briefly so everybody can kind of get the morphing of IR6. This replaces Bulletin 108, which was guidance for water contaminant in your system. This also absorbed the 109, the minimum safety criteria for a safe ammonia refrigeration system. Bulletin 110. Guidelines for startup inspection, maintenance, and ammonia mechanical refrigeration systems. IIAR 16, Bulletin 16, was the guidance for avoiding component failure in industry due to shock and pressures. How many of you are familiar with 6? Someone new. Sometimes I get frustrated with them because they don't send us the end users the updates and some of the explanation. So with that, we've had a long time going through doing gap analysis because IR6 is a standard for testing and maintenance of your refrigeration. So it gives you the minimum requirements for each piece of equipment. Now, if OEM says you do it 3 times a month, then they trump us by all means. But in your maintenance program for compressors, evaporators, condensers, chillers, and whatnot, they give you the minimum guide. Have any of you had a gap analysis at your facility? And we all love the PMs. Most of them are simplistic and we do them, but we just don't take credit for them. Also, I'll hand out while I'm talking. Everybody can look at the comparisons between the old 109. We're all familiar with these. And then attached to it is the new one, the IIAR ammonia safety checklist. So you can compare a compressor to a compressor of the new. And I'll get.
Are they still referred to as 109s and IIAR 6? Because I've seen
I call them IIAR 6s.
Okay.
I do just because you want to say ammonia refrigeration safety inspection checklist. And they don't, yeah. With that being said,
Thank you.
I put a general duty in there and a compressor, just so everybody can compare. They dull down some of the substance info on the top box that we used to all love filling out. If you already had them filled out, it's just what our annual inspection for checking the boxes. The new ones have a lot more boxes to check and they get a little more thorough. for your inspections on each piece of equipment. They still have some of the pertinent information that's good for your filing systems, for motors. You know, not so much on the extra technical jargon. If you look at the comparisons, you can see they build it down to the important things. I mean, the three-phase, frame, horsepower, all that extra minutia of having your serial number for your motor. I don't know why you think you would need a serial number for a motor that is not gonna get you a motor right away with most of your vendors. They're gonna wanna know horsepower, frame, and RPMs to get you a motor. So some of the changes that came about this that is new, I should say. How many of you guys have secondary coolants?
Like floor heating glycol?
Glycol, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's new PMs required annually to test those?
For like the glycol itself.
Yeah, I'll go down the list, I tagged it. So they would like you to annually check your pH balance, make sure it's correct. Corrosion inhibitor correction annually. Water contaminant and water are identified and removed. Checking your secondary coolant freeze points. They want you to check that on an annual basis. Now, I feel like some of these,
So the refrigerant or the secondary refrigerant glycol,
mhm,
you mentioned pH. Are they giving us a range?
they do not.
So how do you know that you've had contamination if you don't have a baseline?
I think a lot of it depends on how concentrated you are, right?
I say I've actually had to look up.
It's no different than a diffusion tank. We're checking our pH for the range. Do we have a leak?
Yeah, but a diffusion tank is normally water.
Water.
So it should be 7 to 7.5. Or glycol, I have no idea what pH glycol is mixed at 30% or 45%.
Depends on water.
Yeah,
Well, I just
depends
did
on the
this
water,
other-
if they use
did
soft
this a couple
water, if
months
they,
ago. You gotta go look up your glycol and see what the mixture is, and it'll give you a range of the pH. You know, that'll tell you if you got a leak in the
There you go.
refrigerant side.
Absolutely, that's cool.
Like you're saying, depends on your inputs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna give you a range of use of propylene glycol versus I forget ethylene glycol.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm not too familiar. I just started all this secondary stuff, but we just had to look it all up, and then they give you. You look at your range through the LED side glass, you know, it's like changing blue colors, and it's like, all right, I'm at 30%. Oh, okay, I'm still within range. A little weird,
Which is good to know though, right?
Yeah.
We can look it up.
but I mean, that's how you're testing.
I guess your SDS sheet on it
Mhm.
would show what your standard, but I get what Dan's saying. You think.
No,
they
I
at least
gotcha.
put us like, this is too low, this is too high. Give us a basis of an upper and lower safety.
No, it does give you, I mean, hopefully they give you a range and then you'll understand. if you're-
Right.
You know, if you're getting ammonia in there, if you've got too much water.
Right? They added a couple monthlies. They want you to check your ammonia appearance in the side glass, which obviously are afraid of cross contamination. And secondary coolant color and clarity.
What
Up to
would,
7.
what would glycol look like if it was in ammonia?
Dan could tell us,
what's that?
what would ammonia look like if you had glycol in it? If you were to look through a sight glass of a recirculator,
It's generally gonna change color. It's probably gonna be green because there's going to be copper fittings, especially on a underfloor system. You're gonna get contamination and you're gonna get some color change in there.
Like a freon green, sorry.
Right.
Like a freon?
Yeah, the other thing that, if you see it, so that would be for underfloor. If, you have glycol in your compressor, for jacket cooling, of a recip, it's possible that you're gonna see some green coloration. Recently, we worked on a system that was ammonia over freon. And so that's a little bit, I was gonna ask you about that. How that works and what, if there's any criteria to that effect, or is it just secondary refrigerants?
secondary refrigerant. It's a great point. It's been brought up. I do know the works is coming down the road for that. Cause that's gained so much popularity in those cascading systems.
Yeah.
And they are, I know that is in the works with IIAR. I'm more pointing out the unique ones, the ones that I guess we wouldn't think of, and one would be a secondary coolant. The other one, my favorite one, is how many of you guys do monthlies, weeklies on your eye washes and meet the new criteria? They've got a whole set of PMs we all need to be doing. Some of them, like your safety guy, would probably cover at the larger facilities, and that's obviously we're opening the eye wash, pulling the shower, making sure it's fully functioning.
Then additional documentation, that's like your fire reports. Normally you do a fire report every month. Go around, check all your eye washes and everything else.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. It's just some of the more unique ones, like, I guess that wouldn't be too bad to be able to capture this, but ensure the water unit supply can be turned on in less than a minute. It's more, do we take credit for, is it listed on your safety checklist? Checklist, I'm sorry, cold medicine's kicking in, hit a checkbox next to that question, so that way you could say, because I know we all do the work, but do we
Just
capture it?
form, basically.
What's that?
Just another form that you have.
Yes,
to fill out.
another box on the form.
Right.
It's gonna be a few of those boxes. Tepid water. You guys know what the water temp is on your eye washes?
Oh, we have one that was next to our fryer.
Oh, there
You
you
could
go.
never get it cool. You'd be running it for like 10 minutes and still like 95 degrees or something.
I believe it.
Yeah.
You know, nothing like scolding it out of it.
Yeah.
The other one I did like, and this one really caught my attention when they came out with it, was on your computer safety systems. They have a call out for making sure we are checking them on an annual basis.
To
Your
find that,
cutouts or what? Or
Your cutouts, your alarms. Are you checking?
are you talking about a refrigeration control system, or are you talking about a processor on a machine?
Computer and dear Lord, I was on purchase, I had my finger on it, give me a sec, I get it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's computer controlled safety systems, logics.
Yeah, like the Empires or Logics.
Yeah,
Okay.
need to function test. You need to functionally test safety system software. Which I've never heard clear definition, like, do we need to get with Logix to verify that they vetted through in the latest and greatest update? That all these work, and then we have to perform it in the field?
So we're doing that currently with some clients, let's say their ventilation systems, okay? And so we're testing the logic of the computer control or the refrigeration control system to ensure that all the functions happen when we have detection. So some of those things are happening already, but there are going to be other features in that control system. For example, some Empire is one. They're measuring discharge temperature on a recip. And so you have high discharge temperature, the control system should shut it down. So those are things that we have not tested, but we are actively testing ammonia detection and ventilation, engine room shutdowns all through the computer controls. So our clients are getting that.
Fully documented.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we are not testing, for example, the shutdown of a recip through the refrigeration control because of discharge temp.
Just a few of the annuals, the one which we're discussing right now on the software. Safety alarm indicators. I feel that can be easily done when we do testing, and then calibration of all sensors involved in automatic shutdowns. It's almost like a level A, kind of reminds me when we do level A for compressors. So you need to. No, detection's got their own section, and
Okay.
nothing really changed from detection or whatnot.
Are you talking about like 212 on the discharge pressure and the
Yes,
temperature?
Like if you had your
I thought I was-
EPCS system tied into it.
Yep.
Set pressure hit, let's say 212, 225, well, 212. It shuts everything down. If you had it tied in uniquely, you just have to document it, but you have to have that sensor calibrated.
So for us, we have a fluke instrument that will take those temperature probes and stick them in that instrument. Set it at 212, it'll go up to 212 and actually cut the machine out at a calibrated temperature. For pressures, we either use nitrogen with calibrated gauges alongside them, or we have a hand pump that allows us to build pressure on the pressure transducer to do that for the calibrated gauge. I was gonna say something here on that. One of our clients just had an issue with OSHA. And it was regarding eyewash. The system needs to supply 20 gallons a minute for 15 minutes. Tepid water. That's what the eyewash has got to do.
What's their tempered water, like 85 or something?
So 85 to 110. And I thought, holy crap, 110 degrees. You know, if I'm in a freezer and I come out and I gotta wash myself off and I hit myself with 110 degree water, it's almost gonna burn you.
Yes.
But I was surprised at how much time they wanted, how many gallons a minute.
What was that number again?
20 gallons a minute for 15 minutes. So I have to, you either have to have an on-demand water heater that's gonna temper that with a mixing valve, or you need to have 300 gallons of water at that temperature available on demand. That's pretty big deal.
Like a big food processing place is gonna need an eye wash station tank now on the roof or something. Or in your.
Well, that's exactly what this is. So this client has 2 eye washes, 2 in the engine room and 1 at the condensers on the road. All 3 of them are gonna be tied in together. The water needs to be continually circulating, so as soon as you pull the thing, you get 85 or 90 degree water. You can't wait for warm water, it's immediate. So that was a big deal. Very expensive,
Yes, they are. and they're
extremely
pushing all that.
expensive.
Cause they want it between 60 and 65. My past life, I know. Summertime, we could run under house water, it'd be 65, 62. You'd meet that, but that's another. Annual testing in eyewash, it is. And the whole, this one I love. You have to ensure your eyewash is capable of delivering 3.3 gallons per minute flow rate. Are you gonna calculate?
Canfield,
There's a bucket test, I've heard of
The
that.
bucket test,
Yeah.
there is, and I've seen a few people they're now becoming more popular, I think they're like $15, what I saw. But you also have to have a stopwatch, and that's gonna be done on an annual basis. It's just some of these little PMs, because they don't put out a bulletin to give us a general overview. That then we go back, and then some of the auditors are good on reading, because it's black and white, it tells you in here. So when they go to your facility, show me where you're testing, and documentation, and that. You gotta show the work we do, right? Or some of these, we may think they're all quirky, and I'm sure some plant controllers wanna lose their mind when they have to spend the money. Calculated.
I just never even thought about 300 gallons per minute per eye wash station. That's per eye
no,
wash.
no, 20 gallons.
No, 20 gallons.
So, but
300 gallons total because I,
300, if you don't have a
Yeah.
hot water heater, you need 300 gallons per
yeah,
eye wash station.
yes,
So if you have 2. in
That's a
your
lot of
engine
water.
room, you have 2 exits like you're supposed to, and you have to have them outside. You need 1,200 gallons or something like that right there.
And then the other side of it is they want you to ensure eyewash is capable of delivering a minimum of 0.4 gallons per minute flow rate. Which I think would fall under the bucket rule. All that would be one checkbox, but still, it's just something that needs to be brought to all of us end users' attention. That we are adding this to safety forms.
Is that the same as the shower on the eye wash?
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It is,
Okay,
yes, absolutely, it is the same. So there is quite a bit of curtailment on the eye wash and shower inspection testing that. Has gone more than the average safety guy can just pull and flip the deal. We got water, we're good. Now we need the temperature, now we need to document all the annual PMs, do we have the right flow rate? You know, I mean, like you brought up. you probably have to get your safety team together and figure out another location or reroute the lines, right? That's stuff, and I know, past life, we had, one up on the roof. We talked about using, well, we know in the winters, sometimes around here it can be hit and miss, but we hit those cold spells. We have the capability of hooking it up to tepid water. So it stays between that 60 and 100 and -10 degree weather we had just about a month ago. You know, that's where it becomes hard. Hard for us. But as far as a safety system overview, there is quite a bit, and I believe that Gen safety sheet I sent out will definitely show you there is vast difference between the check boxes. They've got a little more, making you a little more involved in check things, which I think is good. We should have. I felt like the 109s were kind of vague, very on the check boxes. They didn't get into the nitty gritty. And then when they came out with this grade, IIAR 6, at least they outlined in a very, very good way of what we need to do, and it gives you, like, I'll just pass it around, everybody can see. They got they have this for every piece of equipment, whether it's annual, they'll tell you what you need to do, whether it's semi-annual. WAs were applicable over 5 years, you can do it and what you deem. But it's making sure we're taking credit, we're adding these PMs to our program for our MIs, and we're taking care of those. Now, as far as the rest, evaporators, condensers, compressors, really nothing we all aren't already or shouldn't be doing, right? But once again, it goes back, are we documenting it? Your level A's, that's your annual, your 5 analysis, your safety cutouts.
So safety cutouts are for
4 times a year?
no. For you, for.
Yes. Yes. They are.
Sure, discharge temp. Suction cutout,
The oil temp,
low oil pressure or temp, I can't remember,
temp and pressure.
temp and pressure, so that's the 4.
Yep.
So those are what are necessary to comply with the safety systems on a screw compressor or even a reset compressor, those 4 items. We used to check quite a few more, but those are what's mandatory, so we've downsized things a little bit to reduce some of the cost. Was the PRVs in this update as well?
Yes, yes, they are.
So a lot of people don't understand hydrostatics. So maybe you could,
Yeah, well, so over safety relief valves. In the past, bulletin 110 66.3, they give you 3 options to work around the 5-year replacement. And they have the exempt in there for hydrostatic valves. They still carried that over, but they nicely laid it out. That on your hydrostatics, it's an NA on the 5-year replacement. The only time you would ever replace it is corrosion on the outside, you can't arrest or remove it. And if you had an upset, if it alleviated itself, then replace it. Now, OEM can specify something else to be different. Now, as far as the manufacturers from RS to Cyrus Shank and what they call out, actually, I'll pull that page up. Well, that way, sure, this will hit everybody's home. With that being said,
could you define the hydrostatic for some of these folks, maybe they don't know what it is.
yeah, absolutely. The hydrostatic is a closed loop relief system. We preferably, I've seen them in the industry. If you got an oil cooler on your compressor, it's flooded with ammonia. Goes around your isolation valve. Usually, I guess it depends on your engineering. I've seen them very standard on most compressors, set at 50 pounds. And it's there to protect us. So if we get an operator who didn't read his SOP and shuts, now we trap liquid, now we got temperature rising. This will alleviate back in the downstream side of the pipe. That are going to atmosphere, and they are liquid rated. To begin with, they got to be liquid rated for that, but it gives you pressure protection during a maintenance operating procedure. Because if that thing was ever got fireball, well, you got an open-end pipes, it's got plenty of places to go. It probably wouldn't lift that hydrostatic.
Judge, could you please repeat for me? So, did I understand correctly, you that if it's no corrosion, no damage, no nothing, so it can stay more than 5 years?
Yeah,
That's correct.
that's absolutely correct, but that's
Hydrostatic.
Okay,
hydrostatic.
okay, for example, like, on some compressor, it's really oil.
Back to the separator.
Separator,
But to separate.
That's a
that's a
hydrostatic. That
hydrostatic.
does not have to replace every 5 years.
The difference between the hydrostatic, I guess, I see what Dan said.
That's why that's why I want,
Atmospheric valves, pressure relief valves, right? They're meant to be up with the right codes and standards, the height. Away from doors, fans, intake fans, and whatnot. This is hydrostatics, we're talking about in keeping it in a closed loop system. So it alleviates back into whether that's a vessel wet suction line. Oil pots, you can do that, or the wrap around back to the vent line on your oil pot isolation. So once again, we're protecting the piece of equipment.
Understood, thank you.
And Cyrus Shank writes in there. Their OEM manual for it. They state you need to check it 6 months to a year, but at least the very minimum annually for corrosion. And if it alleviates, so they mirror exactly what we're saying in here. And for the love of Pete, I just had my finger on it. With that being said, I'm sure I've seen this growing trend over, shoot, what do you say, 15, 20 years? The hydrostatic?
the hydrogenics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So in the last 7 years. We have been converting systems over to hydrostatic rather than atmospheric. Because they were a liquid application. And if they did relieve, you would be flowing liquid into the atmosphere and it potentially would rain down on people. So the idea of pushing or selling and converting safety relief valves to hydrostatic so it would blow back into the system is a much better approach for liquid applications on thermostatic vessels, oil pots, anything that could be isolated that we could apply a 50 PSI SRV to. For example, when you do a thermostatic vessel and you're going to have a hydrostatic, the separator has got to be at a higher rating than the system so that you can step that down to 50 PSI. So in other words, if this vessel down below is at what, 400, the oil separator or the oil cooler would have to be 400, so that I downsize it to go into a 300 separator to protect the vessel. So it has to be engineered. You can't just put a 50-pounder on there. It has to be designed and engineered.
Hydrostatic, right? And I know that we do this before. And this is where that would fall out. So with that being said, there is a nice layout between pressure relief valves and hydrostatics in the IR. They've got a nice, it's user friendly. I won't mind. It's probably the most user friendly IR I've ever had to deal with.
It's never been that way.
It's never been that way. It's been gray areas, confusion with these exceptions that we all didn't understand. And now they clearly define each piece of equipment. And, but once again, OEM trumps it. And I feel like most of us come from an older style plant that has older equipment that the OEMs quite didn't have the maintenance procedures written in. But this is great guidance to build your MI program with more PMs. I know it sucks, but a lot of these we should be covering. And a lot of them we probably do. We just don't have a box to check to take the credit for the work we do all the time. And with that being said, hydrostatics has been a hot topic because few people have been tuned up by it. And I think a lot of it, once they go to conclusion with the local authorities, I think it's going to get resolved. Boiler inspectors, you're talking about that, work for a customer, and he'd never seen that and he panicked. Wrote him a citation. Gave him a citation. We had to help him with that to mitigate, to show him, he just was unfamiliar. He looks at boilers, I don't see a relief valve going to the atmosphere. And this thing's attached back on, it says 50 pounds. Even though the oil cooler is rated, has a 300 MAWP, and he sees that number, they freak out. And like Dan had brought, just get your calculation, your relief calcs, that will back it and everything. But they're that new, and a lot of the inspectors have never seen it. And they tend to panic a little bit. If you ever do that one, so make sure you got the documentation to back it up by an engineer. With the new safety checklist forms. Grab those ones. I mean, like we were discussing, how much data collection we all have to do on all these. That now they've nicely doled it down, I feel. I feel like if you took your old 109s, you can easily transpose it up here. And made it, but with that. Look at the box difference. This is an evaporator, this is all the boxes you had to check. And that was done annually, and now look at it. We're getting more detailed, we're making sure, when you do your 5-year MI. If you're covering good ground on your pieces of equipment with refrigeration, on making sure we're holding the ammonia in. The industry standard, I know some people like to use those questions for their 5-year MI. That's really not the spirit of the message. They would like you to be a more in-depth, because if I'm paying somebody to come in and I'm supposed to do this every 5 years, well, let's hope they don't find nothing, because I still have to do it for that year on top of having a 5-year independent MI done.
Let me see that, James.
But they should be a lot more in depth. I know a few people in the industry, contractors that roll with the 109 check boxes. There's so much more to check when you're doing mechanical integrity. This just helps us keep the ammonia in the pipes somewhat safe. But your 5-year is different than your ammonia safety checklist. With the questions that should be asked to give you a good rollover of how your state of your refrigeration. Because it should be a little more in depth than, like I said, we do annually. I seen one, I was gonna bring up, hoses. How many of you guys have hoses at your plant?
What kind of
You guys
hoses?
have a PM,
Transfer
transfer hoses?
Yeah, I got them.
You have transfer hoses? Do you have a PM inspection?
No.
Replacement?
We've got a bit of every 5 years, right?
Depends on what hose. And or do you have damages on your hoses? You know what I mean? That's the inspection. Are you documenting it? No?
So we're supposed to be testing our hoses annually, aren't we? Pressure testing them?
Yes, but OEM sometimes will say replace. There's a couple different ones, a 3-year I've seen.
On the ammonia hoses that we use?
Not us, those are, they got hoses broken down in 2 categories, Stan.
Okay,
They've got ammonia. Non-transfer hoses,
okay.
and then
So
they have a
that's
section
for like, blow down an oil pot, is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Or
that's why I asked
Or
if
an
they-
evacuation hose
an
to
evacuation.
float off into water,
I'm pumping down a control bank, I'm gonna blow it in a bucket of water, right?
so that hose is. required
That
to
falls
inspect.
under its own, has its own set of frequencies for inspections.
And is that ammonia duty or is that just a hydraulic hose?
Oh, no, it has to be ammonia duty.
Okay,
They're all annuals. Really depends on the OEM on what guidance is given for removing. As far as life expectancy now, if it's damaged or something, let's hope we move it. They just basically want you to visually inspect your hose coupling connections for any evidence of leaking, visually inspect hose connection couplings, fittings, clamps, shields, guards, bands, and bands for damage, cracks, loosens, slippage, movement, or misaligned couplings. And check for ammonia leaks during operation. Now that's for non-transferring hoses. The heavy side on contractor, there's a bit of a burden with your transfer hoses. that we use on a regular basis to move from one vessel to a tanker on a truck and all that. They all fall under an annual. But you have to, as a contractor, we gotta document it, right? We have to say we check the boxes, we inspect our hoses. They meet the needs. It's visual inspections for crush kinks, blisters, soft spots, cuts, gouges. I kind of view it as we're checking our extension cords, make sure we ain't got no cuts in the sheath and whatnot. You gotta visually inspect our hose coupling, same as the non-transfer. Visual inspection on the hose is marked, etched, cast, or impressed at least every 5 feet with the manufacturer's name, the words anhydrous ammonia or R717, the working pressure of at least 350 PSIG and the year manufactured.
Is that by us or the manufacturer?
That would be by us
Okay.
verifying that, but this is a requirement. The next time you have 3 LLC guys out doing work in your plant and they happen to be doing a major pump down, they're checking, it's good for you to check that as the end user. To make sure.
That they have it,
Right.
and they're doing it, yeah, I got you.
That they're doing it, so they put a little bit of burden back onto the contractors. I don't know if you guys have ever been involved in like taking on ammonia and had a little burden release. I personally have, and that was a nightmare with a big company that was supplying the ammonia to the plant. Their fittings, come to find out, weren't rated for ammonia, the temp. They were on the swivel socket. When you pull the hose out, it's connected to your pump, goes up to the whole coil reach, you pull it out and it blew. Shot ammonia. That happened twice. But now we're putting, IIAR is putting the burden back onto the contractor, whether it's delivery or pump out for hoses that do transfer ammonia, which is good in our industry, I feel.
So for us, we do a lot more pump outs than most people. The ammonia rated hoses that you buy from whatever supplier that are stamped, as Josh is saying, are designed for ammonia. The moment they become in contact with oil, they begin to soften. And we learned of this a couple years ago, and we're watching for it much more now. We've not had a release, but we've taken hoses out of service because they were softened or blistered or split on the inside. And none of us ever realized that the hose wasn't compatible with oil. Now, most of the time we're transferring liquid. You should not be transferring oil. But when we're doing these big pump outs, the whole plant's shut down and you end up with oil in a LPR or somewhere and you got to get it out. We're pulling it out with this hose. We're compromising that hose. And those things are important to be looking at, because the day you need it to handle 200 PSI or 180, it's going to be a dangerous day.
Once again, in our industry, they set the standard, because I feel like there's a lot of people that, without that standard in place, they could injure a lot of them. Taking a charge of ammonia, we don't think, you got people over here working, but the hose blows and sprays you 50 feet over there, right? Now they're holding them accountable. I know DOT's got their rules and regulations too. And I know a lot of these companies force them, but now we as in contractors, right? Because we don't all roll with DOT trailers, pump out with the hoses on. It holds us contractors accountable for our inspections. But I did find the it's interesting, because I won't lie, my past life, we used them air hoses to cut in. We had a way to pump it down, pump up valve stuck, you hook it up, service valve, dump in a bucket. Did I ever stop and take a look at that air hose to see if it was rated pressure and temp? No. Looking back at it now, I think we're all lucky. Some of the hoses we used. Anybody got any questions so far? No? Evaporators, they did something unique. They, I'll pass this around, so everybody can wrap their mind around, because the first time I ever worked with a customer of ours in Utah and put in an ice cream counter. Dear Lord, I had to develop PMs, and you have to look at the evaporators and all these difference they call out. They even call it heat exchangers, the low temp now, they go by temperature on those and what they deem evaporators. I don't know too many people that do, well, obviously Tony does. Oh, ice cream,
Ice cream.
scrape film chillers, low temp heat exchangers, they fall under evaporators now. For the PMs, the minimum PMs you will do. They have it listed out in like, what's that, 3 pages? Yeah.
Yes. It will, they work on very, very low temperature. Low boiling temperature. They just close like through the street, another company, just storage company, and they came, engineer came and said, no, it's not possible for ammonia to get temperature minus 60 degrees. No, it's possible. No, it's not possible. Look on food gauge.
Right. But they now
Minus what, 60? Is that-
Minus
Yeah, that's what I
60.
said.
Oh, yeah.
60.
You'd have to be in a pretty deep vacuum.
I was
to
gonna
get
say,
minus
that's a
60.
heck of a vacuum with an airtight
Like
system.
-18, riding roughly around there.
And pray to God your vessels are rated for that,
I
right?
think 14.
Oh, yeah, the MD/MT rating, right?
Yeah,
Most vessels, now vessels, you'll see that they're being
Minus.
clearly stamped at -50.
minus
But-
50. but
Yeah.
60,
Yeah.
Most of them in our time, me,
20.
were -20.
Yeah.
Weren't we talking a couple months ago about very cold metal being squinched? What was
Yep.
that?
Quenched.
Quenched. Okay, that was very unique. Instead of being instead of becoming brittle and shattering, they quench it.
So the ammonia tankers are quenched, so they won't shatter.
Yep.
On a, like in case of an impact or a wreck, right?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I'll buy what's quenched.
So it's a method of treating the metal so that it won't shatter during manufacturing. It's a heat treatment system.
Manufacturing to prevent full stress.
Many years ago, I went to not many, it was probably like 6 years ago, I went to the University of Wisconsin, Doug Rindell and Todd. Jokel, they put on an MI class for IRC, is the president of IRC, Doug is. And he showed us pictures, which I never heard of vessels that are rated for -20, but they're working at -50.
You know, a 10-inch vacuum is,
And it was mildly crazy to see when they pulled back, they got a whiff, they pulled it back and the fracture cracks in that vessel was unreal. They had it pumped down, they did a little video. Caps on it, pieces. You start falling in like a broken porcelain ball or something.
Wow.
Yeah, but we'd have never thought that, right? Now they've actually got studies. I think that following year at IIAR, the convention, they had guys that brought in that issue, the heat treatment for the quenching. And stainless to carbon, right, for sheeters. Because even stainless to carbon, not only corrosion, but there's a reaction between the stainless and the carbon without the right stick. And you can actually get spider fractures down your stainless steel pipe. Like 8-inch suction lines, you know, the big.
Is that a 309 filler they're using?
Yeah.
If I recall.
I'm not the welder. I'm lucky if I can marry my keys to my car at this point. No, I'm damn.
They got frogs out there.
That's right. That is right. But this is good for our industry. I feel that they broke these out a little bit. It's just an eye catcher. I mean, I don't think this would apply for a lot of you in here per se. Well, that's subcooled heat exchanger. That's considered an evaporator. You got a little one. Or even a larger one, it doesn't matter. It's
Subcooler?
subcooler is considered an evaporator, low temp. It's a heat exchange to make.
And it's below the 70 pounds.
Yep. Isn't that interesting? Right?
So is it
But-
still considered a vessel, a pressure vessel that needs SRVs then too?
Some of them,
Some of them, depends
depending
on
on
the
the size,
size.
And,
It's U stamped, right?
so it'll have a use
ASME.
stamp on it if it's.
ASME.
Oh, okay, you guys are talking about some plate and frames as well and
Yep.
all that, okay. I
Yeah,
forget all
yeah.
that. All right, all right.
But they deem in evaporators on a subcooled heat exchanger.
Put a
You
little-
seen those little Kelvion?
Frame.
We put them in, right?
Yeah.
They're- I don't know.
That's
I
an
worked many
evaporator.
With Dan. Those are considered a low temp valve. Which is interesting. Condensers, nothing more than we haven't done all these years. I don't think they've reinvented the wheels on PMs. But once again, OEM always trumps that. I can't think of a non-PM with any newer condenser we haven't had before.
None of us are cleaning them enough though.
That is, you can't grow corn on top of your condenser.
Onions, you know,
I mean,
whatever's in season.
there it is. Refrigeration pumps. They talk about low probability and open drive. And the PM for frequencies, so they divided those up. With that being said, that, you know, making sure we're testing our cavitation cutout on an annual basis. That's an interesting one for pumps, I mean,
If you have like a pump guardian, like a,
yeah, it's
okay,
cavitation protection, right? Yeah, exactly. Pump
so,
guardian.
oh, if you have it, you need to test.
Test
that.
it annually, yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
I was
yeah.
like, are we telling me I need to?
So I mean, we could take the credit
Devices.
sometime when a valve took a crap somewhere and it wasn't feeding liquid and your pump shut down. It might want to run down document in this date, pump shut down, cavitation.
Operational.
Right.
test.
There you go. That's what it was, an operation test. The rest of it's pretty much visual, making sure you have, on your Cornells or any of them that have oil reservoirs. And those are all pretty much the standard. I feel as far as, anything added extra to a pump. The visual inspection of your bearing monitor, they do kind of, this one's the only reason I saw, where applicable / weekly. I guess you as a facility could deem, if you have those bearing wear indicators on it, if you want to do it weekly. I've seen plants do it daily, at least once a day on one set of rounds, there's a checkbox. They want that done.
So he's talking about hermetic pumps.
Like the
Where-
Daikoku?
Yep.
Is that a bearing monitor or a
Yep.
motor monitor?
So on the side of it, it's a bearing monitor and it's got an indicator of red, yellow, green.
Mhm.
And so as long as it's in the green, the bearings are intact. It starts to get into the yellow, you need to schedule maintenance. When it gets into the red, you're gonna have a failure. And the failure can be destruction of the pump. You're gonna ruin the motor. It's not gonna leak to atmosphere, but you're gonna ruin the motor. So those are very expensive to work to replace and repair. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why the pumps fail is oil and cavitation. That's what causes their failure. They're great pumps. They're gonna save a lot of lives because they're not gonna leak to the atmosphere. But they are not as robust as the old Cornell pump where you're gonna pump a little oil in the reservoir and keep working.
Yeah.
Well, they got carbon bearings, right?
Yes,
So how are they measured? Are they measuring vibration in the pump for that bearing?
so
That's
we
their-
recently had one go bad and I haven't figured out how that knows what's going on.
Oh, that was a trade secret coming up.
No,
So
I
that for
think-
the moment.
yeah, I think that we could learn from that. In fact, we're gonna have people at the safety days that can help us answer some of those questions. Cavitation protection on hermetic pumps is crucial.
Maybe that's something we could do sometime, is have a Daikoku guy come. I'm
Oh, yeah.
interested. I always thought that was a motor monitor. I didn't know that was a bearing monitor.
No, that's bearing monitor, and there are temperature reads
Oh,
inside the motor
they
as
probably
well.
Reading the scroll or something. the
And
temperature
if
of
you
the scroll.
don't hook that up and the motor overheats because ammonia is not going through it to cool it, you'll destroy the pump as well.
I was trying to lost my train of thought. Oh, there it was. With all the equipment, the unique part is, which I feel that some of us have come up to electrical code. Are we at bar checking all of our panels for electrical connections? And they call that out now, they call it out for compressors, they call it out for pumps, it's an annual PM,
Oh, checking your terminal tightness.
that's right,
Okay.
and they just lost my
Are you physically checking them or can you do a hotspot check?
That's what I'm saying, if you're using like the
Oh,
FR.
okay, I got you.
Hotspot, I could, yeah, everybody's familiar with that term.
I don't know,
Gun,
like, we could just get in there and just tighten it down and
Right,
checkbox. Okay.
but they want you to be able to check here, visually inspect motor power circuit. Electrical connections.
Couple ways to go about them.
It's not glowing, you're good, probably, right? Starting to look a little tarnished, might have a warm spot,
It's not tripping out every 5 minutes.
but they did add that on to all of them, all the equipment's compressors. But like I said, I feel like a lot of the facilities now have moved on and they're either in-house with the flare guns. We do hotspots, right? I think it also helps, a little energy saving, a little.
So if your facility's doing those hotspots in your refrigeration department, should you try to capture that data for your equipment?
Absolutely,
Okay.
cause that goes back to, if
Yeah.
we don't capture, we
Yeah.
never did it, we
You
don't take
document
credit.
it, you never
Well,
document
then I feel like if an auditor asked if it was an incident, something amount, major amount,
it. This is
are
something.
you gonna have to go find, whether it be the maintenance superintendent or somebody, let me dig through those folders.
He's actually on vacation. You wanna come back next week?
There it is, right? Might as well share it, it was affecting your
Yeah.
refrigeration, so that is a good, very valid point. With that being said, also, inspecting all your computer control systems falls under that, their connection. I figured, well, they're all 110. I guess you just want to visually check it, but they threw that verbiage in there, and if you're arcing across something and you can't play solitary, you might got a problem on the PC to begin with. I want to be careful with that,
More than 3 programs, you got a problem?
right? They didn't change much on the emergency shutdown inspections. Semi-annual visual inspection, visual inspection emergency shutdown switch for damage. They did make that a semi-annual. So. A picture, I guess the stop ought to be a
So
switch.
the break glass switches, sometimes because of sunlight, start getting fractures in them and hairline cracks.
Yeah,
And then moisture and dirt gets behind the button. And then if you break the glass, then the button won't pop out. That glass is holding the contact in place. So when it breaks, it's supposed to pop out, shut the system down. But because it starts to get moisture and dirt inside, the actuator won't move.
so that pressure switch won't pop out.
Yep.
And close the circuit. I've seen them get where the rubber breaks off, right? They sit in that sunlight through that glass. You go to test it, unscrew your glass cap, and next thing you know, poof, it's gone. You're like, oh,
And just another note, I've been with auditors that wanna see all those switches tested, and then I've been with one that you just wanna see the closest one, and then we'll move on. So however you wanna go about it, I think testing everyone's important.
I do. I'm a big advocate for that, but I like to test one time running.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not gonna, start shutting down your system with that, clear all the alarms. Let's go back in and test this one over here in door 2 or 3, how many ever you do have a Jason. I feel that is right.
Take them all out and prove that you can't start.
That's right.
Yeah.
It shows the indication on the compressor panel, your PLC, you get your alarm, your lights going, or if you have a monitored, a system that sends out a notification.
Some kind of signal.
Does it show that? Cause you don't have 24/7 operators, but you do have a call out device?
There's gonna be different ways to go about that.
Right.
Some places don't, their boilers don't have PLCs and stuff like that. Or the
They have
alarm
boilers
systems.
with downstairs?
Yeah.
I never grew up in that system.
Nah.
Pretty nice.
New age.
Ventilation. I feel there's nothing new, but I feel they threw a little quirk in there, which is verifying automatic function of your temperature control ventilation. And what I mean by quirk is, are we capturing that? Whether you have an occupancy fan or a continuous running fan, right, for temp control.
Are you testing each temperature zone out? Say you have multiple fans kicking on at different times?
That's a great question, because it just says verify automatic function, so I guess you could light a lighter. One of those, it's probably adjust some controls or add some heat to it, right? To make it kick on. Or if you have the motion detector, obviously, it'd be an easy walk in front of it. And the fan comes on, all right, we verify, but did we capture it to show the word?
Well, they got ones that come on as you
So,
come in the room.
Like the.
Oh, okay. No, okay.
Yeah, motion
I never
detector,
thought
I
about
should
that
say,
for,
motion detector.
ventilation fans.
In our testing programs, we test temperature.
Are you giving guidance, like each plant's a little different, or they have a kind of a set standard, out of curiosity?
What do you mean for set point of the?
Yeah, or do you
So-
turn that down on the Johnson controls? I'm just throwing that out.
So we adjust the temperature range of the room to fire the fans.
Okay,
But as far as conditioning the room, that's left to the facility.
right,
Our test is to ensure that the room is gonna be below 104. That's the whole idea. 104 degrees, that's the code. That's what we need to be below.
makes good sense. Far as that one there, they want you to inspect also semi-annual your ventilation. Override switch for damage and degradation. Your on off or hand auto switch outside, they want that inspected semi. And then the rest will be annual, which I feel we all do, the detection, bump gas. Your upper and lowers. Making sure all the right alarms as it's written in your narrative of your ventilation detection design go off in each step. That's done annually, they've kept that. Fan belts, they threw in fan belts and we were all discussing this. They say it's replaced every 5 years or where applicable. I feel our OEM gives us good guidance and ears and nose start smelling burnt rubber or.
Is that just any kind of fan belts, exhaust fans?
Yeah, I think
Condensers,
anymore, a
or-
lot of the bigger ones in the enclosed
Like-
motors, the green hacks, they're
Yeah,
direct
direct
drive
drive.
anyway, so. I thought there was one more. Detection. They bumped up the frequency on checking your. Proper signage, which is semi-annual, and visual inspection of electrical closures and panels. On the doors need to be tightly closed, they want that a semi-annual.
And that's listed under ammonia detection,
Yeah, it is.
so.
Calibration, this one, I know where you're going, I want you to, but this last question was calibrate all ammonia sensors. Semi-annual. But once again, everybody remember, OEM states that we all know between Cool Air, CTI. Dreger, they all got different, but always follow OEM probes us. Cause I was like, wow, semi-annual, okay. I'm checking it twice a year. I think CTI is twice a year.
Most detectors are twice a year. Cool Air is bump tested every 30 days.
I would say,
Oh, that
So
is. the
that's why
awful.
I recommend that they go to a different brand, Hanson, CTI, whatever, because the amount of maintenance that's involved in bump testing these units all the time is time consuming. There's a lot of paperwork and people they're struggling with meeting the requirements right now, and to add something else for every 30 days is tough.
Yeah, 30 days, dear lord.
And certain brands do not like propane forklifts, do not like hops,
Yep.
do not like any kind of gas. That's other than ammonia, because they'll set off too. Hops is a big thing. I work in quite a few of the beer places, and when they're harvesting the hops, it's so strong, it'll actually burn your nostrils. That affects the ammonia detection as well. So that's pretty,
Super
Yeah.
sensitive
Yeah.
towards that. They put in those 1,200-pound bales of hops. Kind of interesting. Well, The rest of the alarming is the annuals for audible and visual. And while you're doing your detection, it also refers you back to your ventilation, so you can bump test it. As far as that goes. Anybody else got any questions?
I do have a question, Josh.
Yeah.
The book that you're reading from, I'm assuming there's addendums to each one of these new items, if you will.
Yeah.
And so is that something that's available through IIAR that is in a PDF form that we could send our members? So that instead of having a book that here's what's ammonia detection, here's evaporators, here's whatever that is that available to them without? Nobody knows that unless they go buy that book.
Yep.
Nobody knows that unless an auditor comes over and says, hey, are you complying with X code? We don't do a good job of teaching the end users that they need to meet these requirements.
You are absolutely correct on that. So with that
I
being
just have a
said,
question where to get this book.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because
For my
if this is
research.
something that's available that we can easily send our membership, great, we'll do that. If it's not, then where do you get the book so that our members can find it and look up these items?
so I'm just looking at condensers, right? We're looking at PMs. I know people, no names, but they may have already created this in a Word document to match this. For all the pieces of equipment. That at least gives you this page here guidance of what's required for your PMs. Yeah, I can get access to it. I can. How many of you switched over to the new IR6 ammonia safety checklist? Are you still doing the 109s? I only know because I talked to a good friend of mine down south. Company said in their regular gas they adopted IR6, but they're still using the 109s. They actually gave us citation for it like a month ago.
You just mentioned Rega Gap.
Yeah.
Are you saying that plants need to modify and make a notation in their programs saying that they
What code
follow
do you
Rega
follow?
Gap
Right?
and IIAR6?
Because you can't, there's no more 110, it's,
So this is an addendum or a notation that you need to do to your programs to include IIR6. Nobody told you that either.
that's where I was going. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a true point.
And I know a couple facilities have adopted IAR6, a couple companies, they're spreading out their
You're
facilities.
required to.
You're
Yeah, I
required,
know. Some-
especially if I'm coming to Shane's produce plant, I'm installing a compressor and a new vessel. Well, we just installed that to today's latest and greatest codes.
I know,
You know what I'm saying?
it's like, P.S.M's been around for 25 years or so.
I know. Oh, and a good point. No,
You know,
you should be bringing it.
What's that?
This is covered for all closed loop refrigeration. This isn't for those that are 999 pounds. We don't have to do this. No, you will do it. And they give a nice introduction. This is for all
Is
closed.
that why you
loop.
brought up Ragged?
Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
down that rabbit trail with it. I knew Dan would chime in because he's got always good stuff to say on that. He does. 9's the next one coming down. IR9. Maybe we'll do a touch base on that.
That's the
Because
latest.
that's bringing on a
right?
whole new audit every 5 years now. Your minimum safety criteria.
Oh, where they come, okay, I've heard of this.
I agree with the initial, I do. I think it'd be good to basically do a gap analysis, right? Do we meet, this is the minimum safety requirement in my engine room? That's cool. After that, well, I mean, I personally feel I would, because anything I change in my engine room is gonna create a PHA. And if you're doing it to today's latest and greatest standards, your PHA questions are up to code, so you're answering all these. To put safeguards in place, why would, if I don't change anything in 5 years? Why would I want to do the minimum safety criteria? And B, we're redundantly doing PHAs to put safeguards in place with today's standards. But every 5 years, you gotta have it done. And that kicks off March 2023.
Is that essentially that number 9 is going along with the mechanical?
A little bit, yeah. Well, no, it's gonna be a different entity. We're going basically straight
No,
off
my
your,
bad, mechanical.
your ventilation. I
Yeah.
tried to pick it.
Yeah, no, number
Yeah.
9 would be with the compliance part, but you're almost, or a PHA, you're almost essentially doing 2 every 5
Well, your
years.
PHA questions, right? You would ask on like your compressors. At least I know our PHA format we have. They bring those questions in. So now we're making sure when we install this, we check those boxes from IIAR 9.
But as far as like, as far as a facility, like from my point of view, I'm gonna be doing a PHA revalidation or compliance every 5 years, either both of them. And then I got IIAR 9 minimum requirements on top of that.
Yep, PHA compliance 3 years, MI 5 years, pipe inspection 5 years, and IIAR 9.
Coming down the line.
Coming down the line.
Right on.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns?
No, I think you did a great presentation, Josh.
I know at Kemper, especially in our compliance department, I've worked with a lot of your P.S.M coordinators, and all them. We try to build a culture. I feel it's better to start giving this information out to us, because I was an end user forever, an operator, end user, and we all know we don't get that in the mailbox. Hey, we changed the codes. Would you like to see what we have? We don't. With that being said, we're trying to build a culture. We have a good community where we can all ask each other questions. Cause I feel like certain plants have great questions that I have to get a hold of people I know at IIAR or in the industry, period, and then ask them and then give the info back, and we all learn from it.
Yeah.
All right, on a clear definition of codes and standards and what they mean by it. And that's what we're trying to do here at Kemper, honestly, trying to build and help people out. So with that being said, don't be shy of reaching out. If you want to shoot me an email, whatever, call. By all means, phone's open, my email's always open. And like, I don't run a stopwatch, call and ask me a question, that's why. But I do have cards if someone wants. You guys
I
got
do.
questions. What? No, you don't.
I run the watch.
You do.
As far as if you wanted your own book of IIAR 6, I've done research on it. You need to be a IIAR member, which is
We can get it through
$1,000. Oh, get that book.
the set.
I got you. I mean, if you're trying to do it individually.
You could probably do it individually too, but I know we
Single
help people
IAR.
get sets
Yeah, but
and
it's
stuff like that.
$1,000
Yeah,
per
yeah.
person.
They were IIAR.
Yeah, if you're a member, it's $1,000 to be a member. If it's not a member, if you're not a member, it's $600.
I know a friend who knows a friend that would like to borrow one. How about that?
We can read it out loud to you.
Just saying it costs some money, man. You'll probably want to get it yourself through IAR. It's about $1,300.
Oh, they are on the set.
No, I got you. Well,
You know what I mean?
That book,
Yeah.
for $1,000 for a single membership, I've looked it up, and then that book with your membership is $300.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's nutty, man.
Yeah, they aren't cheap, dude.
That's why I very much appreciate Rita, and we ain't got IAR, books coming out, but I mean, operator 1, 2, and 3, it's still, it's worth the investment to start out small, especially if you're just starting out as an operator.
Well, you guys recognize it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I mean.
Yeah, well, that's always good.
That book, man.
So I keep asking all these questions, and I'm like, you guys got any questions online?
That's the PDA.
We're about wrapping it up here.
No questions. Thank you, Josh. You're awesome.
Oh, thanks, my.
Who's that?
My.
Where's she from?
Liz? He sees you.
We got watch with these here. I remember who those were. I'll get those emails sent out to you guys tomorrow, so bear with me. I got my own job to do, but I'll get it out the best.
Next week.
Great, thanks for attending, guys and girls.
And if you guys got any questions about anything in particular, you can reach out in email after I send it out tomorrow. Other than that, just have a good one. Have Valentine's Day.
Especially for them.
Right? thought Dan would have brought us cupcakes or little hearts on it.
You guys have a good one.